All right, Johnny Nelson, welcome to the High Performers Podcast.
Alex, really excited and delighted to be here sharing whatever I can share. Hopefully it's of value to you and your guests or your audience.
I know it's going to be of value. We've had some good conversations in the past. And let's talk about, we actually met in Bridger Pennington's Investment Fund Secrets Black Card group.
Yes, we did. Yeah, that's a long way of saying that. People probably get lost in just trying to track all that. But yes, we did. And groups like that, as we probably both realize, Alex, self-selecting bias of high-performing people. And I'm kind of segueing into something maybe we want to talk about in a little bit here, but people that are maybe ambitious, that are high-performing, that want to do things in life, and they want to be around other people that are like that. So it's that's one of the major benefits of internet and groups like that is you can find like-minded people across the world essentially and connect with them really, really quickly and efficiently.
You touched on something right away that I had a big challenge with. Now, I used to be living in Hawaii, and I used to complain, probably foolishly. I was like, I don't know how to connect to other people who are, high performing. A lot of people want to like surf and hang out and relax on the beach. And I'm trying to like go and meet people. And I didn't really take advantage of reaching out and getting on the internet. And then whenever I moved to Dallas, I had a circle of people that I could actually physically be in the presence of.
Yeah.
And now that I'm in the presence of them, they're saying the same thing, which is get on the internet, connect, because I'm in Dallas and you're in
Minneapolis, Minnesota.
And how would we have ever connected either in Hawaii or in Dallas? But now we're in this group together.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And that's a piece too, where two components of that, the proximity and having those person-to-person meetings are incredibly important. And also, so you have to do that and you have to have a presence online. But if one isn't available, then for heaven's sakes, like do something like kind of like to your point, like, yes, like, okay, yes, I can't like make, billionaires. I'm not going to hang out with a lot of billionaires, maybe in Hawaii on the regular, but, versus maybe some other place like California or Texas. But what can you do? And that is like, I can at least go online and find a like-minded, whatever the word is, tribe or group or, entity that you can, start cultivating something there.
I want to echo part of what you said there. Teddy Roosevelt said, do what you can with what you have. And I get back to that so much. Anytime, it's like I have to catch myself because a lot of times we have these little mental loops that'll just get stuck in there. And I'll catch myself and say, I'm just sitting here complaining about something. I have to do what I can with what I have.
Yeah, that's a powerful piece too, is we use that as an excuse, a crutch oftentimes for, and it's such a lie. It's such a blatant lie because if we had the perfect situation or environment, we still wouldn't be doing all those things that would take us to the next level or for us to grow ourselves because it's very uncomfortable. It's like, oh, if I just had the right room in my house, and I would work out more because it would be the perfect gym, the gym set up. Or if I just had beautiful weather, like I would be running more. I guess we use going an exercise analogy. So all these excuses versus like, what could I do? And it's like so many things you can do right now because once a lot of us have it just is this, we have so much abundance around us. We even realize when you see somebody from, let's just say, a second or third world country, how innovative and creative they are with like the most basic stuff, like what we would call garbage, like cans and batteries, and they'll make something very creative with it. I come from a background as a builder and a mechanical engineer, so I love that kind of stuff. And I see people being incredibly creative with like garbage, and it's like, holy smokes, I'd be like, I need this tool and I need that machine and I need this book and I need this training, and they're just doing it. So like, put us to shame.
That's a good admonishment for us all to really move past these excuses that we make, and we let ourselves get really comfortable. Well, I gotta have this before I do that. That's a really great point. Let's back up and talk about, I have a first question that I usually ask people, and we blasted right through it. And that is, what do you tell people? Yeah. Oops. Right. What do you tell people when they ask you, what do you do for a living?
I tell them I'm a real estate fund manager. And then they ask, that intrigues them a bit. And then they say, so what does that mean? And essentially, I help successful professionals passively invest into real estate to help them achieve, or at least see the vision of what time freedom and multiple sources of income could look like for them.
And now you were actually one of those high performing professionals, weren't you? You were a professional engineer, correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah. High performing. That's a little generous, but we'll just say an engineer. Yes. A professional engineer. Let's go with that. That I believe that gives me, just like you have your background and doctors have their backgrounds and dentists and then all these people that maybe step into the real estate space or some investing space, that gives them a lot of not only credibility but also a common parlance and a common understanding and how to relate. And that's obviously super important, when you're working with these different groups. So me as a mechanical engineer, I relate well to, yes, the STEM types, the science, technology, engineering, that type of thing, mathematics. So that's kind of my avatar that I think connects well with me. So just because I have that common understanding and that background.
Do you feel like that background, because there's a lot of people that talk about how you're either creative or you're analytical, and it's challenged to really develop both sides of your brain. What do
Yeah.
you think about that? How does that work for you?
I have trouble actually separating my ego out of that loop, because it's like I think when in more arrogant moments I'm like I think I'm really creative, and also I think I'm pretty analytical. I think just my actual natural personality, if I was to take a test, which I haven't done a specific test on that, I think it's actually I just happen to be a decent balance between the two. I don't think that's something that I didn't choose to be that. It's just like I'm, 6 foot 2 inches, just like something you just happen to be. But to your point, you can actually, work on those things. And I kind of like being a split really of the two things, because yes, some people are just like insanely creative, or they're just like an analytical machine, like a computer walking around on 2 legs. And those people they are incredible and they have their place. But I think you're a more well-balanced person if you have both and you can foster both to some degree. So I kind of enjoy, because when I'm talking to the creative types, I can get into it. Like I know I'm not as deep as they are, and I'm talking to the analytical types, and like I know there's much better engineers out there that can out calculate me and out logic me. But I'm not bad. I mean, again, this is me self reflecting. I don't think I'm too bad in either one. So I just personally, I kind of like the split.
I've talked to some people that talk about stacking skills and finding two things that don't really relate and being able to put those two things together. Like if you're I think Scott Adams is the one that talks about this. He's not an incredible comedian, and he's not an incredible artist as far as drawing and making cartoons,
Yeah.
but he puts the two together and is able to be the best at those two things together.
I love Scott Adams, but I didn't hear that particular comment or that particular reflection, but I love that idea. And I do another thread, we can just a brief excursion down that, is I do think some of the most innovative ideas in our world come from cross-pollination of different disciplines. That's something else that I can kind of just like, I guess kind of retreat to, like, hey, you know what, I have this like these different sides of my personality or just the team. You can build a team like that as well. And because they're all together in the same room, you're going to have some innovative and novel ways of looking at things, because you're not just exclusively in one camp. So I really think it's actually very important, actually is kind of the baseline of humanity and how we grow and how we develop as a society.
I think you're right. And I hadn't really even thought of it that way. That is really important, that when you're building a team, you might not have the very best engineer, the very best of everything, but you put two or three people together, even though they're not the very best, you can become the best team.
Yeah, you can come up with some very creative ideas that just a team of engineers would not have thought of. Like we're notoriously bad if you just pivot your attention towards Silicon Valley, for example. A lot of them are technical founders, and then like marketing is what we do when we ran out of stuff to do, or when
Yeah.
and then many companies have failed and fallen flat on their face because it's not always the best product that wins. A lot of technical founders just want to keep working on the product and improving the product, which is fantastic. That appeals to a sense of us that like the people that read Zen and the art of the motorcycle maintenance, that kind of like high quality. But like if people don't know about it, and also marketing is such a huge thing, and our world is saturated with so much noise and marketing, that product will never. It's pointless. There's no point in even continue working on it if you can't share that knowledge and that product that you're working on. So marketing and sales and branding, all those things are super important. Alongside the technical aspect.
Let's talk about real estate. You mentioned that you run a real estate investment fund, and this isn't your first rodeo, so to speak. You've been investing in real estate, and you've been talk about that. What have you been doing?
Absolutely, man. So to
And
clarify
wait a
for the
minute,
audience.
don't be afraid to brag. I hate
Okay.
it when people get on here and they're like, "Well, I did a little of this," and I'm like, "No, no, no. I know you've done some big things. Go ahead and brag if you want. Tell us some numbers. Don't be shy.
I'll brag as appropriate here, but just to clarify, so definitely, and I am an emerging fund manager. So this is a recent endeavor. That's actually the motivation to leave my W-2 job, my engineering job, which I had for like 9 years, stepped into this fund space. Is I think this is a tremendous opportunity. But even taking a step back from that, like, well, why did you decide? Maybe the question, why did you just decide to become a fund manager? Well, real estate, like you said. Yes, I come from a general contracting background, also an engineering background. So did a lot, built lots of homes, some single family, some multifamily, smaller size, some commercial, and that gave me a lot of confidence to step into the space of real estate as an investor. So when we got to that investing, started small. I call it the bigger pockets method. A single family. Then we did some rehabs, and we did some flips, and some duplex and a fourplex. And then the last deal that closed was 40 unit, which is a brand new build. Really interesting. I think maybe a time for another convo to discuss how we got that guy under contract, but got a brand new 40 unit under contract, closed it last year. And that's goes kind of like, what, I think with seeing the challenges of basically capital raising, I think now is time to pivot and niche down into the real estate space. I love real estate. I love what it can do. I see all the most of the people that are successful, where I want to go, I want to be, in 10 years are in real estate. So obviously, you don't need to be super successful or super lucky or super like smart. And we all have our attributes there as well. But let's just say maybe you're falling short of one of those attributes. And how can I get there? So yeah, real estate's the answer. What can I do that's special to me within the real estate game? And that's capital raising, but also that's actually a niche inside even being a fund. Being a fund is, as we both know, Alex, we're both part of that same group. There's many aspects to it. It's the due diligence, it's the knowledge, it's the thesis, it's the people. That in itself is an exciting business to be part of, and that's what I've been focused on the last 9 months or so. So, and those that fund will target larger assets in growth markets of the U.S. So yes, a real estate background, a general contract background, an engineering background, kind of it's all led to this idea of realizing, getting on people like yourself and the Black Card Group, the power of what a fund can do for someone that's serious in the space.
Let's go ahead and deep dive into that deal that you were talking about. How did you get that 40 unit under contract?
Yeah, but it was super exciting. It was, maybe you've seen this in yourself before, where a lot of people are telling you should do something, and people were telling me like, hey, you should do direct to seller. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like, it's like, I don't know, like it's like fishing, you're just throwing out your line.
Yeah.
Of course, fishing is recreational, but then if you're like spending money and a lot of time and you have a full-time job and you're out there prospecting, maybe sending postcards and maybe emails and texts and talking to brokers and trying to stir up some traffic, generate some leads, depending on where you are and how fertile the market is, it can be very disappointing. You can just be out there for like, and I was for like a couple months, just prospecting with nothing, like, dead deal, done, dead, just nothing. It's like,
Yeah.
that's what you have to have some fortitude. Anyway, so we did a direct to seller campaign via text, and we sent, so the guys I was working with was like, hey, set up your parameters, like what you want to do, size of building, age of building, all this kind of stuff. So within all that, it was, several $1,000s, it was a fairly extensive campaign and expensive. Like, I have no idea, like, should I just go out to the backyard and burn $2,000, something like that? Or is this going to like, generate results? Cause like we did like the first 3 quarters of it, like $1,500 into it, nothing, like literally, like there was like a couple leads, but they were just like garbage. Like, it was like literally generated some garbage. Wow. Like, well, this is a very foolish way to spend a lot of money quickly, after like a week. Second part of that campaign, we finally got in contact with a gentleman that was currently building. He was living in an adjacent fourplex, and he was building this brand new studios in South Minneapolis. We just kind of hit it off, and I got his number. He gave him a call. He's like, yeah, come out. Like, I'm here all evening. I'm like, wow, that was fast. Normally you have to set up the schedule and coordinate, and there's going to be a broker, and it's all kind of formal. Here's the builder, super friendly guy, blah blah blah. And we went out and met. I liked the deal. I liked the project. He told me his price. Obviously, the guy building it and controlling all the numbers, it's not so opaque. Like, we're working through a broker. Like, hey, what do you want for this thing? You're like, hey, here's the numbers. I did the initial underwriting. I thought maybe I'd missed something like fundamental. Like, hey, this is the best numbers I've seen in a long time, and just those numbers just worked for him. And because I've been looking at like lots and lots of real like C-class stuff, 70s and 60s build in South Minneapolis. I'm like, yeah, it's too high. It's not going to work. It's going to be super thin. Not enough. Not enough meat on that bone. So yeah, all that being said, so that kind of found the deal. The numbers work good. It took us really, really long time to close it. And again, that there's all kinds of pieces to that story, but like 9 months to finally close that bad boy. We brought 1031 money in there. It was an incredibly expensive tax bill and a CPA tax firm that did it for us. So they charged us a really, really huge, pretty penny. And also, we were able to put it under contract for deed as well. So basically, seller financing, and he didn't even upcharge us for carrying that note forward. Like let's just say I think the note was at 4.75, something like that. He could
Wow.
have easily said, hey, he could have easily said, you know what, for my hassle, I'll carry this for 5%. You can have the more you can pay the mortgage, to me, to the bank at 5. Like he could have made a quarter percent or something like that. But he just flat across gave it to us. So many twists and turns and interesting ways. And we started syndicating. Again, I don't want to just ramble here, but
Yeah, keep
there's
going.
different threads we could go
No,
down
keep
here.
going. You started syndicating. So you did that 40 unit and
Yeah.
you got it under contract with owner finance at really favorable terms. And so then you started syndicating more deals after that.
No, actually, so when I say syndicating, so we actually that deal, the idea was we will syndicate this deal. So we had like the webinar, and maybe your audience, they probably are familiar with what a syndication is, but essentially it's a group of people that come together that are buying something just like a fund is that they normally couldn't buy themselves. So
Mm-hmm.
you collect all these people and say, hey, this is what we're doing. So syndication is like that, and that was the plan. Like going into it, like, hey, this is buildings like $6 million. It was actually I think 5.5 or a little more than that. And I was like, hey, well, we obviously we don't have $5 million laying around. We're going to need to go raise the money. So, we part of a mastermind in the multifamily space, great group, great coaches, great network. Like, hey, well, this is how everyone does this. This is like, I mean, literally, it's like you're trained to do it like this. So, like, well, this is what we're trained. We know this works. We literally see dozens of our peers doing deals across the US. This is how this goes. So that's we commenced on that at that time. So it was 20, late spring of 2021. Minneapolis did not have the best reputation for, as we know, of COVID and rioting and unrest and some other things that definitely soured some investors on the area. So it was just challenging when you initially started raising, like, hey, this is not going so well. So we were pulling out all the stops and, calling everyone and their mother, like, hey, this, that, and the other, like, hey, do you want to be part of this deal? Finally found a great partner that had recently sold a warehouse in New Jersey, and he was 1031ing it. And maybe I'm sure you know what that is, Alex.
Yes.
And then others may or may not as well, but it's a tax deferred way of moving money from one sold asset to like kind asset. So it's a very efficient way of redeploying your capital and deferring your taxes. So that we found a nice briefcase, metaphorically speaking, of money in there that would take care of a lot of the capital raise. So that changed that whole paradigm of needing to syndicate. Of like let's just say we needed, we're targeting maybe 20 to 30 investors, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, I think we just need like 5. Like it's a JV at this point. That the 1031 will come in as a tick because it needs ownership of the asset. Percentage wise, my wife, myself, a local partner, and 2 other guys, and then the 1031. That was the partnership. So went from a syndication to a partnership. There was all kinds of drama on the build side as well. Working the city in new build, and there were some restrictive covenants, and then the architect was not the most sharp character.
Oof.
So that's kind of the story there.
Where are you in that deal now?
I think we're sitting at 80%. We've had some challenges on the property management front. We just commenced with another team about 2 weeks ago. So they seem to be on the ball and aligned with our interests. That not the other teams were not, just that it's they're running maybe other larger properties, or this one's more just like is out of their way. That just there's different reasons that your property management team cannot have run it like you think and need it to be run. So the new team is on board. I'm super excited about working with them. And then we've also leveraged some newer technologies too. Like there's this one basically SEO service called Effortless Leads or Effortless Ads. And they have a very, very cost-effective way of running SEO ads on Google. This other company, the previous PM, was running or they were running apartments.com ads. That's a very, very common one. That's kind of going the way of the dinosaur there. It's kind of dying where you have this intermediary party, like
Hmm.
collecting all the information, and then people go there. Because if you end up on like on page 9 of apartments.com or Zillow, no one's going to see you. And we literally were on page 9, Alex. So that was
Wow.
well, like no one is going to go to page 9 and see your apartment. So we were really, really slow over this past summer for lease ups. So one of the guys that helped kind of lead some of the development on the deal is like, hey, this is people are very, very local and have very, very specific needs. Why are you going to a second provider versus just showing up on Google when they type in some keywords like South Minneapolis studio apartments? And that should pull up, within 4 or 5, search bars, something related to your apartment. So that's where we're sitting now. And I've seen some very, very tremendous feedback. You can actually watch it very carefully and see what the click-through rate is and how many people go to the website. There's a lot more transparency on the, when you're running ads versus when you hand this off to a second digital advertising agency. You really are very much in the dark. You don't know what they're doing. You don't know, obviously besides spending a lot of money, you really don't know how effective it is besides just leases coming in the door. And there was like none. Wasted a lot of money. Again, spent a ton of money. Was showing up on page 9, no leases. Like something's wrong.
Yeah, whereas I'm seeing the exact same thing. We just got a report. As you know, I'm in the RV industry. So we just got a report from the RV Association of America that had been surveying where people are booking. And I would think it would be CampSpot, which is a specific online travel agency for campgrounds, RV parks. And there are about 3 or 4 other ones, and even Airbnb in there are down at like 5 and 7% of that's where
Wow.
people book. And it was 89% straight on Google, Yahoo, right on the search engines. 89% straight from the search engines to either your website or your booking. And
It's
that was
across the board,
completely,
man. It's
it's
across the
across
board.
the
People
board.
are they're doing direct to Google search, direct
Yeah.
Google. I mean, Google is the dominant player and it's direct searches and people go exactly to the web page that they're looking for. And the Google algorithm has gotten better. So like all those other like whether it's travel like kayak.com or
Mm-hmm.
like apartments.com, like say this campsite website, they're literally dying. They're gonna have to like buy these upstarts that provide those direct to customer searches or really transform themselves. It's all over. It's across the board in services and marketing and products. So yeah,
It seems to be that that's the phases of aggregators. So in the beginning, Google is the search, and then aggregators are kind of like TV channels. They're putting you out there, they're marketing you. So they're a channel. Well, now the channels are just people don't want them. They have open access to the whole thing.
right. Yeah, you look at all the pluses, Google Plus or not Disney Plus and Paramount Plus and Netflix and all this stuff. People like, hey, I want this. I want to watch comedy, and you go directly to that and you look for comedies versus like, well, this is what we're serving tonight, people. Take it or leave it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's at the end of that phase for them. Okay, so let's go back and talk about mindset. This is the High Performance Podcast. Let's talk about just that word first of all. What does that mean to you whenever you hear the words high performer?
I think of people that are ahead of me, and I say ahead in the game of business, the game of success with family, success in their satisfaction and where they are in life. And so, high performer is I don't think they get that label by just being average. They're obviously differentiated by something that you're doing that people recognize, and I would say even this sounds kind of dramatic, but like essentially, human beings have a tremendous respect, essentially, if you would, for heroes. We have kind of these archetypes that we like look up to, and I know it's very unpopular to think about that, but like that's why like these hero and like Marvel movies are so popular because it's like these archetypes that are presented like, yes, I can see myself saving all the people or doing good or sacrificing myself and growing beyond my initial constraints and my weaknesses. And I think it's very, very appealing to people, whether they consciously digest that or admit that or not. And I think that's what high performance, those kind of all that is what high performance or high performers mean to me.
Being the hero. I really like that. I listen to Jordan Peterson quite a bit talking about taking the religion out of biblical stories and
Yes.
the kind of supernatural part of it and looking at the effect of an archetypical top notch person being Jesus in the Bible and being the prime example of, if I could make myself the best that I could possibly be, this is what I would be like. I would be compassionate, and I would be loving, and I would be all the things that Jesus is in the story of the Bible. And it's the same thing you were talking about. Sorry, any religious folks that compare heroes to Jesus, but superheroes or Marvel comic books. But it's the same sort of idea of, if I can make myself the best that I can possibly be, this is what I would be like, that ideal that we're chasing after or that we're working towards becoming.
Absolutely, man. And I'm a Christian. And my faith is super, super important to me. And also, I listen, read a lot of what Mr. Peterson puts out there as well. I'm sure you're well read, and that's one of the many people that I listen to and digest what they're saying and what suggesting. Just a little sidebar to that is, I think it's really, really deeply ingrained in us, the respect for that. I think we have it like before even we even realize it. I think most people have that respect for, like you said, the archetype, the highest level, the person that among all paradigms and all perspectives have achieved, or most perspectives, most paradigms have achieved some very, very high level. So, that's something obviously that people have been speaking about for probably decades now, is like, the kids don't have any heroes now. And the heroes that we do have are sports figures or music, entertainers, things like that. And they're like, look at their values, and they're terrible, and they're poor, and all this kinds of stuff. So, but they're really kind of dancing on the question of like, or not dancing on the question, just that like, you can't get away from the fact that we're just kind of wired. Many people are wired that way, is to have a deep respect for those types of people that have achieved a lot.
I've been toying with this idea and trying to figure out. I title it, "You Don't Want to Be Me." Like, the
Hmm.
folks that really do achieve, there's such a sacrifice that's not seen. We talk about Tiger Woods as the big one. That's just a prime example. I mean, the achievements that he's been able to grasp in golf, the numbers of holes in ones, the numbers of longest drives, the numbers of championships, they just really blow everybody else out of the water. And then you look at failed marriage and tough love from his father all those years, and started out at like 3 years old, just started and did nothing but golf, 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 back injury, knee injury, all the hard things he's had to go through, and the surgeries to get to be that one thing that we look at. And a lot of times we don't realize there's a ton of sacrifice to get to be that person. So we look at him and we say, man, that's what I want to be like. But a lot of times I don't think we let it sink in. Is that really what we want? Because to get that, this is what we got to do.
Yeah, man, that's a fantastic perspective, I guess, foundation to have, of what are you willing to give up to achieve the highest level. And when you do achieve a level like Tiger Woods or somebody else, just because there's so many people on this earth, there's always somebody better at something that you think. I mean, very, very rare, extremely rare to be the best at something, in life. So there's always someone you can look up to, or be challenged by, or maybe be envious. It could be negative too. Like, I wish I had what they had. I wish I had their talent. I wish I had their skill. So that's a huge, huge thing of, like you said, you don't want to be me. Like, you don't know what I've had to sacrifice to get to that level. And definitely it's the special among us that have achieved those things. And I don't think it's your average person maybe has the stamina or the obsession to achieve those levels. But at the very, I guess, to leave a positive flavor to it, because we could take this in many different ways.
Mm.
At the very least, it's aspirational for many. And I think that's a positive outcome of that, of like, hey, because like, I'm terrible at golf, but I, like, you see Tiger, and like, hey, I'd love to be better. I don't have any ambition to be, world class, and obviously it's way too late for me. I would need to do that when I was, 3, or much younger. But at the very least, you can say, hey, this is the kind of level, and it's inspiring, it's encouraging, whether it's a musical performance or art, or, like you said, sports that have achieved some of the top people, is very kind of encouraging and inspiring.
Yeah. I think what you said is that whenever it's inspiring, it doesn't have to inspire us to become the same, but to become better than we are now. That's what that inspiration is for. That's where to keep your eyes on the folks that are at the top of any field that you're in, is to keep your eyes on them and watch their habits and their routines and their mindsets, not to become them, but to be on the way towards being the same, to be on the way towards being the best that we can be in ourselves.
Yeah. I think somebody heard some quote the other day is like, be satisfied where you are, but hungry enough to keep, to strive to the next level. There's lots of different stoic and, philosophical ways of saying that same thing. It really is a amazing balance when people can't achieve that. And many high achievers actually don't have that, haven't even achieved that balance themselves. They're like never good enough, and they're very
Yeah.
dissatisfied with things. But sometimes we meet people that are truly, truly satisfied and content where they are at, and but they also have never they have not given they haven't given up on life and their family and themselves. Like, hey, I'm good enough. They're always trying to achieve and strive to the next level for themselves.
Let's talk about that a little bit as far as like the balance and the being able to keep the family, because you have a strong family unit, you have a strong Christian faith, as you had already mentioned, and you have a strong business that you're building, and you already have some success, and you already have more success that you're building now. So that's something that's been a big challenge for me. I haven't done well. I've had terrible times with not seeing my family for many, many years, being
Yeah.
focused on one thing, not being close to family or not being close to even the people that I'm with. So talk about that a little bit. How's that worked for you as far as balance and being able to achieve your goals and stay close with your family and close in with the people close to you?
I mean, that's a huge, huge question here. I think super, super valuable question to explore. There's not like, like you ask a question, I'm gonna give the answer. It's like such a huge one to talk about. Currently, right now, I think a lot of us high performers or high achievers, that's just the people that are really striving for something better in their life. We all feel way overwhelmed, and there isn't enough time. I wish I had a 48-hour day versus a 24-hour day.
Mm.
Although I do have accepted a point where it's like, I do as much as possible. I really elevated the value that I put on time, even though like and I have it mapped out. As soon as I have sufficient revenue inside the business and these other ventures, I'm going to hand this off to somebody else. So I'm working in the background with systems, and also when I sit down on the couch with my daughter, she's 6 months old, and it's like, I had like 50 things to do, like I need to get some stuff out. I'm okay saying like this was, God's plan or just the way it's going to be, that I got as much done as I could today, and it's time for the family now. You just have to let that be okay. And then whatever success, quote success or deal or whatever that's not getting done, then that's the pace that you're destined to go at. So that's how and it's not like some kind of profound revelation or some, genius way of balancing family and life, but it is some semblance of work-life balance and that kind of thing. So that's how I've managed through that up to now. Although I'm really, really obsessed almost with, again, generating revenue, not to buy, a Mercedes, but is to buy my time back and really be careful with my time. That's very, very motivating to me, is having that, soon as I get enough revenue to start handing these things off and delegating.
That's a big challenge I've been working on as well. And one of the things I've been trying to do is hand off before I can actually afford to hand off. Like a lot of times I'm kind of cutting my own paycheck way, way down so
Yeah.
that I can pay accountants. So I'm not spending 20 hours doing accounting that takes them 2 hours.
Right, man. That's it. That's another awesome, awesome piece to that as well, is make sure you're truly like only you are doing, like you're the best person to do this. Like maybe you don't like it, maybe it doesn't give you energy. Maybe you truly don't have the money, like, some fancy thing and like it needs like $20,000. Like, well, a lot of us maybe don't have $20,000 sitting around, but could you just, like you said, afford a CPA or accountant to do something like you probably suck at, you're probably not that good at. So don't be, penny wise and pound foolish there. Like, if you need to pay for it, even if it's like not sitting right there, go for it. So that's another huge piece of that. I've also thought about that as well. Like even though I don't have, extra revenue, should this be worth a sacrifice? Yes, something else is gonna trim down, or I'm not gonna have enough backup or whatever. But should you decide to just do this anyway and start committing to hiring those kind of professionals who can do it much more efficiently than you are. So I love that. I love that thought.
It's hard, man. It's not an easy decision to make, and it's not an easy check to write. It's a real challenge. It really cuts in, but I've been doing that with accounting. I'm starting that with the video editing. I've already brought on a videographer film I should have out in the next couple of days.
Nice.
Something that we videoed. We videoed some podcasts like this over at an event, live at an event. And that it got to the point where I can't go run the camera and be in front of the camera and interview the guest and set it all up and get it and then edit it. There's just literally a physical boundary where it's not possible to do all of that. That's part of my journey of reaching towards that higher goal and seeing the people that are doing it and saying, man, they physically cannot do the two things at the same time. They had to hire somebody, and that's what forced me into actually getting the videographer out there at the event.
Yeah. And do you feel like that's here's me asking you a question here, Alex. Do you feel like that is I guess what better time to do something like that, to hire somebody, than when you physically can't? Like, is there any other better, like the decision basically is made for you, and
Yep.
like we're all wondering in our mind and waffling and like I shouldn't do this and balancing like 50 things, versus like you physically can't do it. Like, hey, that's like an easy decision. So we actually something else we could talk about is how many decisions can we make in a day and how many high quality decisions can we make, you know? And if you can just offload a decision, because like essentially it's like a brick wall in front of you that you can't, the only choice to go forward is to go around it, then it's made.
That's been a big one for me. And I'm actually loving it. At first, I hated it. It's been maybe a year and a half to 2 years of this constant not being able to make those decisions, not being able to say, I just need to write the check and have somebody else do it because I know they're going to be better at it. And I've gone forward and gone back and gone forward and gone back. Accounting has been the big one for me because I've always gotten to where I'll hand it off some. I don't like how good a quality and I feel like I'm way overpaying. And then I take it back over and I'm like, see, I can just do this. I can just spend an entire 20 hours working on this accounting and then messing it up and then having to pay an accountant to come back in and fix it. And it's just been a really foolish thing that I've gone through, but I've finally gotten to where I pray that I'm finally through it to where I know that that's not my task and I keep offloading those tasks. But now that I'm doing it, I really, really enjoy it because they'll ask me questions.
Yes.
And I say, I trust your judgment. That's why I'm paying you to do it.
Yeah. 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 It's great. It's great to have someone that does ask those questions. And it's delightful when you can just say, you know what, like your knowledge and expertise is 3 times what mine is here. So like, I really don't know. You ask a few like kind of light questions on the edges, like breaking the law and some other things like, hey, you decide, because I don't know. I literally don't know.
Yeah, I really don't. Let's talk about your habits, like your daily routine. Do you have specific habits that you do on a daily?
I do. Nothing profound, and nothing necessarily. It's more frequent. I often do it. I often find just for myself, and this has been a common one with a lot of kind of popular of last couple of years, is that one of gratitude, of a journal, of journaling, and having a gratitude journal that could be one or the same or different. But I really do feel that makes me more productive in general when I kick off the day with writing down 3 things that I'm grateful for. Sometimes, because as we both know, Alex, we get in a deep funk. We get really grouchy. We get very negative. We just like you have like a week of things that just didn't go right, according to your mind. And then when you take that time to say, what are 3 positive things that happened? Then it forces your mind to to think of those positive things, and literally the whole, again, it's not, we're not talking like magic seances here, like, oh my god, just say a few words and everything is like 4 times better. It's like, truly, I've seen it reset my mind where it's like, I think the day wasn't too bad. My wife asked me like, well, how did the day go, or what did you accomplish today, and things like that. I think it was an okay day. It wasn't too bad. I'm naturally kind of a negative, very analytical, critical person. I'm hard on others. I'm hard on myself. So that's something that's actually a real challenge for me. And obviously, we get less done when we're like really, really negative, just thinking of the things that didn't go right and the things you wish you would have accomplished. Like, we all have something to be, at least 3 things to be grateful for. Thankful for a great dinner. Thankful for my daughter. Thankful that, like, maybe like we just think like, oh, it's just going to be business related. Like, well, business is great, but sometimes I can't think of something business related because maybe that's the thing that's kind of sucking me down. But sometimes you do have good wins in business too. So I'll put something like that down. So simple things, personal things, those things that are relevant and that change our mind.
That gratitude one is humongous for me. I started
Yeah.
about a year ago and I had just left Hawaii and actually had a tough time leaving Hawaii. There was some tough stuff happening. So whenever I got over here to the mainland, when I first moved over here,
Yes.
like I had mentioned before, I hadn't seen my family in many years. I hadn't been close to them. I hadn't been
Wow.
geographically close to them. And so that was a big part of moving back to the mainland. A big reason was to be close to my parents. They're not young, and
Yeah.
time rolls away. Time
Yeah.
keeps going. Time does not care about us. And all of a sudden I realized time is just going away. And eventually they're not going to be here. And I'm going to really feel stupid that I was over here chasing this dream
Yep.
and I didn't see them at all for many, many years. And so whenever I got over here, there were tons of changes in my life, tons of just big changes that were really, really making me depressed. And I was having a hard time getting up in the morning. And I wrote out a list, and it turned out to be about 100, and it changes. It keeps growing, and it gets about 150 just things that I'm thankful for, down to I can walk and I can see and I can hear.
Yeah.
And I made this humongous list. I'm thankful for the fact that this is going well. I'm thankful for this. And I just kept making a list. And if anybody sits here and thinks about it, anybody who's having a trouble with this, anybody who's having a challenge, not feeling great in the morning and really having a hard time getting up and getting moving, I highly encourage you to do this. Just start making a list. I can name 20, 30 things that you should be thankful for. You woke up and you were in a bed. You woke up and you had a roof over top of you. You know, I've been in a place wherever I was sleeping in a van and living off of food stamps to try to get myself back up to get to the position I'm at now. I
Yeah.
can walk, I can see, I can hear, I can speak. There are things that you're good at. And so, anyway, I read that list every single morning. Very first thing I do before I get up out of bed, I swing my legs out. I got it there on my phone. I open it up and I read that entire list, that whole entire list. And then
It's
I go
amazing,
to
man.
my, yeah,
Yeah.
it's changed my mind for real.
Yeah.
And it's all of the neuroscience stuff that I'm really into, all of the Jordan Peterson that we already mentioned. It's being able to rewire your brain and refocus your brain on things that make you happy. And the very first thing on my list is I'm thankful for this list because it forces me into happiness every single morning. And it sets the mood for your entire day. It sets your brain, and you're already at a higher, happier level from the very, very first moment of the day. And whenever you're just waking up, a lot of us want to grab that phone. That's a big habit I had for a while, just grabbing the
Yeah.
phone,
Me
even
too.
though it was highly curated and it was YouTube and it was like positive stuff.
Yeah.
It was still not me being in control of it. Me
Yep.
being in control of, I'm going to take my mind and put it at a happy level. I'm going to take my mind and put it at a grateful level. And that starts your mind into going, hey, man, we got to work to find good, positive neurochemicals for you today. We got to go and find good, positive things for you to see. And there's that reticular activating system, which is kind of like a net over the top of your brain that controls. It's this filter that lets everything through. And I call it like a translator. And you see an old lady crossing the street and you got to sit there and wait through another red traffic light.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
instead of seeing this old lady that's walking across the street getting in your way, she's getting in my way. She's slowing
Yeah.
down my schedule. Being able to change that in the very first moments of the day, it affects the whole day. The later on in the day, I don't see an old lady that's in my way. I started to think things like, oh, thank goodness that I can just give her time. And thank goodness she can just walk across there and it'll be safe. And there's just different things that'll pop into my mind because I'm translating things in a grateful way. It's been a game changer for me.
I mean, that's so good. I really literally got felt excited, goosebumps as you were kind of describing how grateful and how transformative it is. And I think that's actually really good, not a segue, but actually a loop back to our beginning piece of our conversation about high performers. I think we've both observed as we try to get closer, not try, that's crappy language. As we get closer and around people that are high performers, they many have really focus on that positive aspect, not Pollyanna, not like everything's roses and things are good,
Yeah.
but they really exude, have a vibration and a spirit of gratefulness, not all but many, and positivity, and a lot of them don't want to be around people that are going to bring them down.
Yeah.
So if we can adopt that as well, like you, and I've told my wife this, sometimes like we'll be fussing at each other, grouchy, and like by just changing our minds, we could turn this day into like just a mediocre day or into like a good day. Like always, it's like literally we just have to think about it differently, and we could like you can just suck with yourself, or we can like go to the next level. So it's like you literally just have a choice of like you want to have like a miserable day, you can have like at the very least an okay day by having some thoughts like, well, that's kind of literally no brainer if you would,
Yeah.
because you just change that. And it's like, I could have, what set course, chart your day. You want to suck, or do you want to be like, good, or at least okay?
I call it translating, because you're taking the exact same thing that's happening. You're not changing what's happening. There's actually still the
Yeah.
same thing happening. And
Nobody dropped by with a free car. Nobody
yeah,
showed up
that's right.
with a briefcase of $1 million, like all this like physical stuff, or like somebody said like Johnny, like nobody showed up and said, Johnny, you're the best thing that ever to happen to anyone in the world. Like no one showed up and said that. So literally, it's like nothing changed. No one can see anything, but you're just in your mind.
In your mind, we translate it and we reframe it into something else, and we have the choice to do that. It's only us that gets the reward, and it's only us that gets the punishment if we don't.
Right. Yeah, we are pretty hard on ourselves and make our own self pretty miserable oftentimes.
Yeah, we do. So have you gotten into any, I feel like people that are kind of, I hate to say it, at our level, but are at the same amount of experience as you and I. We've kind of connected, and we have a certain amount of past and a certain amount of learning that we've been working on for probably
Yeah.
quite a while. Have you had people reach out? Are you doing any sort of mentoring or anything like that?
Some, yes, some of my college roommates, or not roommates, but college friends, have reached out. I went back to school when I was older than they were, so I had like some life experience. Like I said, I was in construction or I can't remember if I mentioned that or not, but I was in construction. Then I went back to college. So
Mhm.
when I graduated, there was some younger guys. So that's been kind of fun. Is just showing a lot of them are interested in real estate, but also I can tell that just there's obviously a difference of some life experience as well, where I have somewhat more maturity and some seen some more things. And I can not only share with them about real estate, whether that's passive or active investing, which is obviously a very specific thing to do, and also like just kind of general, it kind of sounds self-important life coaching, or like just share some knowledge and some wisdom perhaps that I've gained. That's probably the best way of saying that, is perhaps some wisdom, life wisdom. I love sharing that. So nothing formal, nothing like structured, but when I do, they reach out and they see me posting on LinkedIn or Facebook, whatever, and they're like, "Hey, Johnny, I've been seeing this, that, and the other. Hey, I'd love to connect." So yeah, I literally had like a call 2 days ago with one of my graduating class fellows.
I'm getting to love that,
Yeah,
because it sounds exactly what you're describing is exactly the sort of thing that's happening to me. I've got people call up, they say, "Hey man, let's talk about this," or just whenever we're on the phone call, I can't even help it that I'm just start talking in a certain way. I'll hear something they say, and I'm like, well, let's talk about it a different way. Let's reframe it in this other way. And then
yeah,
they'll call back and they want that same thing. They want help reframing. They want help looking at it in a positive way, in a grateful way, all these woo-woo kind of terms that really become very effective.
right, yeah. And then they respond positively, and then they see not only have you grown in the business, you've shifted from, like myself, as from a mechanical engineer, a corporate engineer, corporate person, to this investor thing, which is a little bit fuzzy. Like, I'm not sure exactly what you're doing, but you're in real estate. It's kind of like it's real kind of nebulous to them. But then also when we engage, they can see like, holy smokes, Johnny has like really, matured and grown. And it's not because I'm a genius. I'm like some like brilliant man. Like all of a sudden I went into a dark hole and I came out, enlightened. It's like, hey, I've been around people, smart people, wise people. I've read a lot. I've really worked on this, and I'm pouring forth and transferring the knowledge that I've learned and the wisdom that people have shared with me, and I'm giving it back to you. So I always, people say, oh, you should be more confident. Working on the confidence piece, but also I want to make sure I book in it with some humility as well. Like, hey, you can, and also I think it's also somewhat relatable. Like, hey, you could be this too. Like there's lots of things you could do. You can read, you can listen, you can engage, you can be part of groups, and you can also level up or elevate, or shift your mind where you're just simply, life is more fun. How about that? Life is more fun. Not being miserable and bitter and grouchy and thinking everything is against you and nothing goes your way. That's just miserable. You're just literally just being miserable.
Yeah. And you're making the choice. That's the part that sucks so bad. And it's so hard once we finally realize it's like, I was making this choice to feel that way.
For sure, yeah. And that's not to say, of course, that either one of us, but I'll just speak for myself. Plenty of days, yeah, I still get grouchy, and I still think, I still have selfish thoughts, and
Yeah.
in negative and things like that. So it's like, yeah, there's lots of things to not do there, and I'm working on right now. But it's working on it piece by piece, man. That's best I can do.
It's an unending journey, one footstep at a time. Well, let's tell people, how do people get in touch with you? You're a real estate investment fund manager, which
Yeah.
means that you find real estate and people invest with you, how do people reach out and get in touch with you?
Well, thank you for that, Alex. Yeah, so it's arctoscap.com is the website. Arctos Capital, it's just shortened form of that, is arctoscapital at gmail.com is a great email address. I'm on Facebook, either Arctos Capital and also just under Johnny Nelson. So multiple different ways of getting to me. LinkedIn and our Facebook, and active on those sites. Arctoscap.com is the website again, and I'd love to hear from you guys if you want to know about real estate investing, going through a fund. I'm targeting the people that are more interested in the passive side, but because just like Alex, we've been through quite a journey on active and passive. So I'm happy and I actually love talking to people, help them actually save time on their journey. So if active is for you, then let's do active. Let's commit to that and do it well and really kill it. If passive is for you, let's chop off that front end of all this learning of 2 or 3 years of maybe being miserable if it's not right for you, and getting right to it and say, hey, I want to just have the time freedom that passive investing can help me, get there. So yeah, it's all about time, that time value of valuing our time very, very highly. So that's something, like I said, put a lot more emphasis on, and that's transferring that. I convey that when I talk to people as well.
How do you spell Arctos?
Absolutely, sir. So it's ARCTOS. So Arctos, ARCTOS.
And what does it mean?
It is essentially a Greek terminology, or it's a Greek thing for bear. I was born in Idaho. I've lived in Montana and basically all northern, western states, and I lived in Alaska. And of course, Arctos, it's Arctos is actually part, so Alaska has, the northern lights and, the North Star. And Arctos formation actually is part of that formation. So it's kind of a multiple tie-in there: celestial, aspirational, northern U.S. or Canada, and so kind of all tied up together and it ended up with Arctos.
Very good. So I have one question I ask everybody at the end, and this is the question. Let's imagine for a minute that this is the last time that anybody's ever going to hear from you. This is the last appearance of Johnny Nelson that ever is going to be. Everyone in the world is going to watch this podcast, and you now have the chance to give your message to the entire world. What is Johnny Nelson's message to the world?
I love my wife, my daughter, my family, and yeah, that's probably it. I love Jesus, and I just wanted, as I get older, I'm just trying to do, share the benefit of the things that I've learned and help others.
Thank you, Johnny. For me, the Alex Alexander and the High Performers Podcast, this is Alex reminding you to be high performing, because if I can do it, you can do it too. Be high performers.